What you're about to experience are my opinions and truths. I'm suggesting these possibilities for you to consider, enabling you to come up with your own conclusions. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, code breakers around the world, wherever you may be. My name is Logan. I'm going to be your tour guide for this presentation on the topic of the mushroom cross. I've had to redo this one for specific reasons. There was material that I left out, etc., etc. The mushroom cross, Decoded. This is part of the sex series. If you're a member over on the Patreon, thank you so very much for all of your support over there. This was a special presentation over there on the Patreon, Sex Decoded. And then we kind of started this thing off with this presentation called the penis chromosome Decoded. So this is whole part of the sex series. If you want to watch this one, you can get over and be a donating member on the Patreon. We have 120 videos over there that you won't find here on the public YouTube. So this presentation is something that I got tipped off by another member and this book. When I put out this presentation right here, I didn't even know this book existed. So thank you to whoever you were that mentioned this in the comments of this presentation right here. It was because of you that I started to dig a little deeper, and this book here, which I haven't even read yet, so I'll be very honest, but it is included in this presentation, and oh boy, what a big tip-off to include this information in this presentation. So thank you very much from this presentation right here. So it's on this book right here by John Allegro. He not only was the writer of this book, but also he had a book written on the Dead Sea Scrolls. And when he put this book out, he really got criticized by the scholars based upon the information of what this book was all about. And you can see up there at the top here, the question was, did the Christ figure evolve from a fertility cult? The controversial bestseller. It's a very interesting book. I would highly recommend you go check it out. I'm going to for sure. Maybe some of you are going to do some mushrooms. This is kind of the comedy, and you can see here we have the phallus umbiquitus. It's all about sex. This is kind of fascinating that John Allegro writes this book about a fertility cult. And this will also segue into Dr. Hillman's work with his book called The Chemical Muse. And I'm hoping that I can reach out and do a live podcast with him. If anybody knows how to get in contact with him directly, I'd be greatly appreciated. You can send me an email, decodeyourreality@gmail.com. I'm going to try to find out how to make that happen. Maybe he realizes this or not. You know, the sacred mushroom and the cross is tied to his work, The Chemical Muse. There's a lot of merit that goes into this now. This book here. So I wanted to point out, according to Hillman, it was drugs. And according to John Allegro, it was drugs. You may not associate mushrooms with drugs. That's fine. Even the poppy. Even the poppy seed, morphine. It's a drug, but it's a plant. This is a plant. Is it a drug? And then maybe some of you have taken this amazing substance, DMT, dimethyltryptamine. Notice that the numerology is a match to the original word for Jesus, from Isaiah 7 verses 14. This is the very first time Jesus is mentioned. No, it's not Yeshua, that's Ezra, and that's the son of Jehozadak. And it's not Yehoshua, that's Joshua. It's Emmanuel in Isaiah 7 verses 14. And then it becomes Jesus in the Greek. Why would these match up like this? And again, the value in numerology and the spoken word is where we tie into the source code. We speak magic spells. And these numbers end up manifesting by way of the letters that make up the words that we speak. And then I have the Knight of Swords here. I thought this was interesting because this is the 62nd card in the tarot. And I want to be very informative here for all of you. This card is the card for 2026. Yes, 2026 on the Gregorian calendar is the Knight of Swords. And this is the card of revolution. This is the card of the Tin Man. Notice he has helmet on and iron on. I mean, not iron, but he's got metal all on there, that knight. 62. Very, very fascinating. There is the scripture. Just so you know, this means God is with us. This is the L, Emmanuel. But this is the very first time Jesus is mentioned. That's why in Matthew 1 verses 23, it is revisited again, referring to Emmanuel, spelled in the Greek, of course. They don't use Yeshua or Yehoshua. Those are not Jesus. Those are high priests and killers. Joshua is a killer, and Yeshua from Ezra 2 verses 2 is the son of a high priest. Much different. So really it kind of comes down to this. Excuse me. It comes down to the chromosomes, which we've talked about in the prior presentation, the penis chromosome, and this is the Y chromosome, as we know. It's in the letter of I, which is a phallus, which determines the sex. And this, right here, if you're somebody who fancies theology, this is the original cross that the Greeks talk about, the stauros. This is the original cross. If you're doing the T cross, that's a Roman construct. But even in the New Testament, which is Greek written, it's stauros, which means an upright pole. This is the original cross. It's not a T cross. It's this one. So if you want to look to precision, if you want precision, you got to get rid of the T cross. That's a Roman construct. It's the Greek, which are the Greek New Testament scriptures. It's the upright pole. This is precision of the crucifixion. That's tied to that I or Y chromosome, which determines the sex. You ladies have the X. The males have the X and the Y. It's very, very interesting. So here is the book, and here is just kind of a cliff note from the book. If you'll read with me, it says, in The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, the author states that early Christianity were rooted in a fertility cult centered around the use of psychedelic Amanita muscaria mushroom, which is this red dotted mushroom, not a literal historical person. This is where he got his beef from with the critics. It goes on to say, Allegro suggests that the language of the New Testament encodes symbolic references to the mushroom's ritual consumption, which was believed to grant direct access to divine knowledge and spiritual rebirth. In this view, Jesus represents not an individual prophet, but the mystical experience induced by the sacred mushroom, with his death and resurrection serving as metaphors for the psychoactive cycle of dying to the ordinary self and the awakening to an enlightened state. Many of you that have done DMT, mushrooms, you've gone through these awakening states. I know plenty of people that have done mushrooms and they have come out a very much different person, changed their lives. Maybe you're one of them. So there's merit here to what this author John Allegro is alluding to and the information contained in this book. And of course, again, that crossover into Dr. Hillman's work with the Chemical Muse. So here is the author, John Allegro. He was born on the 17th of February and he died on the 17th of February. I do believe this is Michael Jordan's birthday. But what's fascinating is he's got a double 8, because if you take that 8 of diamonds, which is February 17th card, if we just go to the card charts, here is February, and then we come down to the 17th, and there's the 8 of diamonds. Whoops. So this is card number 34, and again, he passes away with the same exact card. That'll give you the 88. You can go to Ra with that. Remember that we have 8 known blood types. Also, what this connects to is Star Wars, because Star Wars came out on the 7 of Clubs day, which is the spirit card of the 7 of Clubs is the 8 of diamonds. But notice the number for this card. It's card number 34. And immediately, I have a lot of these things memorized. The word tree in Hebrew, as in tree of life, is 34. The word tree is 34, and that 8 of diamonds is the 34th card, which sits in the crown line, if you know the cards, of the master life spread. 8 known blood types. And we go back here and we get this information about a cult, a fertility. Fertility ends up putting a player on the board, and now you get the tree of life. What's very fascinating about this, how John Allegro's tied to this, and his birth and death card, is that all we have to do is go to the tree of life, the source, Judaism, and you can see I have it highlighted here in Hebrew. See, this is the word tree right there, which is 34 in Hebrew numerology. And he's got card 34. Remember, 8 known blood types tied to the tree. There's kind of the tree, right? There's the tree. And then you add in of life, and you get the 46. And the 46 card is the 7 of spades. 7 is how many colors in a rainbow, how many days in a week. And what you notice there when you bring the two cards together is the 87, which is the numerology of the original spelling. This is where Greek comes into play. Now you have Jesus entering the scene in the New Testament in the book of Matthew, chapter 1, verses 1. The introduction of Jesus. So you have Jesus being 87. You have John Allegro's birth and death card being the 34th card, which has got the big fat 8 on it. And then you have the 7 of spades, card 46, which matches of life. He literally has the 8 and the 7 right here, and he writes about it. This book being a book of a fertility cult and the cycle of dying from the physical sense when ingesting the magic mushrooms. There's a lot of merit to this now with this. I think so. What do you think? We're not stretching anything. This is just simply connecting the dots. This is how we do this kind of decoding here. This is kind of forensics decoding, if you will. So we're going to revisit this right here, and we're going to do the full spelling of Jesus, adding in the title that he got, the Christos. And we already covered this, and how valuable chemistry is when you bridge the gap. The total numerology in the original Greek of Jesus Christos is 205. That attaches to the element thallium. You're going to see how big this is and how big chemistry is when it comes to the spoken word and the code that plays out through us. Well, thallium comes from the Greek goddess called Thallo. You know, it's Greek. This is Greek. The Greeks have so much to do with this, and the Greek gods, and they have every right and place to be in this position and be right up there with all this theology. But Thallo was the goddess of fertility. This is fertility. It's just in a different way. This is a green shoot coming out of the soil. Fertility, which is life. And here's the Christos, giving life to the Jesus. Jesus is the man, the Christos is the Creo, it's the gold, it's the light. That's how all this stuff works. And when you add up everything from the chemistry standpoint, thallium-205, we're going to get to this in a little bit. How deep we can go with this thallium. But when you add up the neutrons, protons, and electrons of thallium-205, it's got 124 neutrons. That is the symbol of Zeus. You get 286. We've done this countless times. We've done this, adding up the neutrons, protons, and electrons to get a deeper clue, and that leads to our blood types. The 8 known blood types is 286. The numerical value of the 8 known blood types. You're going to be one of these. You're either Rh positive or Rh negative. What blood type are you? I'm AB negative. What about you? 286, matching thallium. How long have we been saying at this channel, you are the Christ, you are the Jesus Christ superstar, you're having the experience. And you got here by way of love. Your parents made love. They had sex and they made you. Maybe not, they didn't do it on mushrooms, but we don't know what happened back in these days when they were writing all these ancient manuscripts. We don't even know how old they are. It all comes down to what scholars will tell you and historians will tell you. But how do they really know for sure? They don't really know the age. They can guess. There's a lot of guesses with history. That's why I like to be a code breaker. We don't need history to break down the code. We just need the final product. So it's tied to our blood, ladies and gentlemen. And is this the reason why Jesus wants you to drink his blood? Do the vampirism. Keep doing this in remembrance of me. Eat my body, drink my blood. Do the vampirism and do the cannibalism. No, thank you. This is what leads to eternal life, the blood. That's why the blood is so sacred. But as you can see, the value in chemistry coming through, tied to numerology, this is called alchemology, taking numerology and moving it into chemistry. And this is not a one-hit wonder. We've done this how many times now? For years we've been doing this over here on this channel, and many of you other great decoders have been doing this. So let's get into the next topic now. The number 9. 9 is the number of repetition. And from a numerical standpoint, numerology, the science of numbers, which is what we all use. We all use numerology because you got to know what this means now. It's great to connect numbers and words to numbers, but what does the number mean? See, the number 9 is a repeater number. That's what it does. If you put any number next to the number 9, it's going to repeat it. The 9 does. And 9 is in nature. It's a hurricane. There's so many amazing things you can connect with the number 9. It's the last digit before you go to double digits. So it's the final frontier, the completion of the cycle of 0 through 9. Well, we're going to talk about this, and we're going to get into how this number 9 fits into the card system. The amazing 52 cards of the deck, 53 if you add in the Joker, 54 if you add in the 2 Jokers, if you don't count one of them as the 0. There's always 2 Jokers with a deck. But you see, this is where Jesus comes into play and becomes Venus. Venus and penis, they kind of rhyme, right? Well, Jesus made that claim in Revelation 22 verses 16, saying, I am the bright morning star. And that's Venus. And in the card system, to back that up for evidence and support that Jesus, the man, is representing Venus, the planet. Even the law of one material was channeled from 6th density Venus. We go to that card number 9, which is the 9 of hearts. I have it highlighted here. And it's sitting in the vertical row of Venus and the horizontal row of Venus. And the symbol of Venus is the circle and the cross. The circle represents spirit, the cross represents matter. And when I go to the Latin numerology cipher, when I go to the English numerology cipher, I'm using Latin because the Latin church is the big proponent of the Christ character. And the letter I is the 9th letter in the classical Latin numerology cipher. It's the number 9 in the English. But this is the letter I right here. Remember that chromosome, the Y chromosome, doesn't look like the letter Y, it's the letter I. And it's a 9 of hearts. The 9 of love. The repeat of love. Again, what does the number 9 mean? Repeat. So when you take it and you put it into the cards, it means repeating love. Jesus was all about love. The phallus is what makes love. The eye is a phallus. And the eye is Jesus on the original cross. Not the T cross. It's the I cross. Well, that also coincides with the 7 of diamonds. This is the master spirit spread, by the way. This is the governing divine spread. But then we look to the master life spread. This is ground zero. When you have your birthday, your 0 birthday, when you come out of your mother's womb, this is the chart you would reference. Your birth card will sit in here. While sitting in that same exact space as that 9 of hearts is the 7 of diamonds, card 33. This is very fitting because the story of Jesus being crucified was 33. 7 is the mystic. The 7 of diamonds, and we're going to get into that and how valuable this is. But it's the 9 and the 7. Or the 7 and the 9. 97 is the 25th prime number. And if you watched my 8-pointed star on the Patreon, you would know what that 97 means. When you add these two cards up, you get 42. Spirit and life, 42. The 9 repeats the 7. That's what the 9 does. The 9 of love repeats the 7 of diamonds, the 7 of physicality. The diamonds represent the physicality. And you add those two up, 9 plus 33 is 42, and we know how big that 42 is. Life, the universe, everything. 42, which is the element molybdenum. But it also ties right into Jesus and the Christ, because if you go to Matthew chapter 1, verses 16, in the very first book of the New Testament, Jesus is number 42. There are 42 generations from Abraham to David to Jesus. See, this is how you just completely synchronize these layers to show a narration that's really undeniable. The evidence here is very strong and to me undeniable that these are connecting points that are very, very big and strengthen the narration of how this works. Remember, 9 is repeating 7. If you take 9 plus 7, it's going to give you 16. 1 plus 6 is 7. 9 will repeat the 7. And 7 of diamonds means the physicality. There are 7 chakras. The 9 repeats that over and over and over by way of love. The love of the game. That's what this whole thing looks like. And we covered this in the prison of Jesus, where when you take the birth card that was assigned to Jesus' birth on December 25th from the Roman Catholic Church, it's the 6 of hearts. That is what card represents December 25th, which converts into the 42nd card in the tarot, the 6 of cups. This little kid right here is giving this girl flowers, and really what the underlying principle here is sex. As innocent as it is, eventually it's going to lead to sex, which is procreation. That's why Jesus was all about love each other. Well, when you go all the way back to the conception of the birth of Christ, you're going to land on April 5th. I'm going to show you how I get that. And April 5th is the 3 of spades, which is card 42 in the card lineage. And we have, through the Vesica-Piscis cipher, this is such a valuable cipher. The square root of 3, because this is the square root of 3, and this is the fish, this is the mitre hat, the NFL football, the lunar and solar eclipses, the portal on how you get in this reality and you have a live birth. And the reason why it's maritime law is because it's the realm of water world. We're going to talk about that. But here is card number 53 in the tarot, and the 3 of swords representing the 3 of spades. So what is this indicating through the narration, this storyboard? you're born into this world without the memory of why you came. None of us are awake at this stage of the game. And then you are going to repeat that through death. And you're going to have conception again. Is there a way to break out of that loop? Well, we have a whole series on that, the Prison Planet series, and a whole bunch of other videos beyond that. But the reason why I'm showing this card and how I got to it is all you have to do is take December 20. You should do this for your birthday. We have this on the Spotlight course. What does your conception astrology look like? All you have to do is take your birthday. You go to timeanddate.com. You go to the add days section, type in your birth date, click on here, you click subtract. And for this example, for Jesus's example, I'm going 264 days. And you're going to calculate it out, and there it is, April 5th. Doesn't matter the year. Why I'm doing 264 is because Jesus references himself in Revelation 22 verses 16 as the bright morning star. Now this is the average standard biological gestation period. It's between 259 and 273 days. The average being 266. Well, lo and behold, as fate would have it, bright morning star in the original Greek from Revelation 22:16, where Jesus references himself as that, is got a numerical value of 264, and that's why we chose the 264, and lo and behold, it gives us the 42nd card for the conception, which is live birth. These are massive layers of evidence that we live in a scripted reality. This is the final product that we live through, us being human beings. But what writes that, the narration through the cards and numerology and the tarot and sacred geometry, this is what it looks like. And just to confirm, here is through astronomy. Covered this already. The number 263 is the number of days Venus is visible in the sky during each phase. 263 is one digit away from 264. I would say the 264 has complete merit here. Venus is the bright morning star. Jesus clearly says that in Revelation 22 verses 16. Why would Jesus be Venus? Because Venus represents love. Love, the Venus flytrap. You haven't seen that video, you should go watch that video. So let's get into Tarot Jesus. Now, we did a whole decode on that, Jesus through the tarot. I want to give you a recap on that. We use the name numerology from the Greeks. And you get 87, and there are only 78 total tarot cards in the most popular spread. So all you have to do is use that as the base, subtract the 87 from the 78, and you get the number 9, and he ends up becoming, in the major arcana, the Hermit. Now, this is the part of the Jesus character that I like because, and I'm being biased because this is my life. This has been my life for so long now, being a hermit, giving up a lot of the worldly possessions, being a minimalist, being celibate, being a monk, living out that life of the hermit. So I'm being a little biased here, but obviously I'm not stretching anything, and I'm not trying to fit the narration here to fit my life. As I said, we're all Jesus. We're all Krishna. All of these religions and stuff, they all are part of the same thing. What about through the cards of illumination? Cosmic playing cards, you take the total amount of cards in a deck, 52, just subtract that 87, and you get 35. And the 35th card is the 9 of diamonds. And the 9 of diamonds converts to the 9 of pentacles, card number 73. This is the You're on Television card. You're on Television is 73. That's this card. So this is the what I feel is the dualistic aspect, is you have the superstar, the person on television, but then you have the opposite of that, where this hermit doesn't want to have being in the spotlight. You literally have complete opposites here, in the major arcana to the minor arcana. But nonetheless, these two represent the Jesus character. This is having everything you want, being the superstar. This is kind of giving up everything you have, in a sense. And this number 9, this card right here, the Hermit, this is a Sagittarius card. The Sagittarius energy is energy number 9. Sagittarius is ruled and operated by Zeus, the ruler of the heavens. That's why you have Jesus. The smartest card goes in the sign of Sagittarius, and it goes to the biggest planet called Zeus, which has the great red spot on it, which is the Vesica Piscis. Wisdom. That's why the 9th house of astrology represents your higher mind and your philosophies. But then you move it into this. This is more of the ego, the 9 of diamonds. But this card, according to Sharon Jeffers, the great card reader, she calls it the one who gives. Well, that's what this whole energy was all about through that story. Again, a story. Was it true? Was there really a guy named Jesus? I wasn't there, and neither was anybody else. Does it mean that Jesus wasn't a real guy? No. The story makes it true because people believe in it, and that's spell casting. That's why people have faith. They have faith on the spells that they read and speak. So when we move these two cards into the tarot, the 9 of hearts and the 7 of diamonds, we start to get the storyboard. We start to get the pictures emerging. And remember, these two cards are tied to Venus. They're also in a symbiotic relationship with Kronos, because Kronos shares these energies of these cards, if you know the card system. And what does Kronos and Venus mean? Love stuck in time. That's what we all are. We are love stuck in time. We are time travelers, and we're here because we are here by way of love. Love of the game, love of sex, love of procreation. So the card 45 represents the 9 of hearts, the 9 of cups. This is wish fulfillment. Yeah. Wish fulfillment through the recycling of love. And then the 7 of diamonds from the life spread becomes card number 71. And this is like mulling everything over and everything you have. What am I going to take with me? What's important to me? When you have everything you want, well then what's important to you here in the 7 of diamonds? Okay, that's what these two cards look like. And these two cards add up to 45 and 71, 116. Again, the value of just chasing this, adding things up. This is the source code that majority of the world doesn't want to look at. They're not interested in the esoteric, the occult. They're afraid of it. But that's what these whole stories are made up of. What is important about the 116? Well, it's tied to Matthew chapter 116. This is the 42 generations of Jesus Christ. He pops out in chapter 16 as the 42nd. Matthew 1 verses 16 is 1 verses 16, which is what 45 and 71 is going to add up to. Venus. Jesus, I am the bright morning star. It's reincarnation. Recycle. The word crucifixion is 42. The word wonderland is 42. Alice in Wonderland. And he comes from that 41, the vessel. That's why Vatican sits at 41 degrees latitude north. And that's the word womb. Coming through the womb, the portal. The 116. Right here. This is what this looks like. Okay, these cards represent what this looks like. And then we can easily go to the amazing human design system and synchronize that and just go to the two gates that are connected besides what they mean through human design, because gate 45 and gate 21 are going to have their own meanings. You can see gate 21 is tied to the word love. And it's sitting in the energy center of the desire, the heart's desire. And that connects to, if you have a connecting channel to the 45, that's tied to Pandora's box. You know, keep in mind, those of you that celebrate this holiday, you're celebrating love stuck in time. February 14th is day number 45. And it's Cupid. This is another strong layer of evidence to support that Jesus is Venus. And Venus rhymes with penis. And you need the penis to make love with the vagina. Venus. Remember, the law of one material was from 6th density Venus. They channeled Ra from 6th density Venus. I didn't make that up, man. It's in the text, in the Law 1 material. So we have the great human design playing out here. Let's get into the next topic now. This one is love expansion, because that's what Venus is all about. So now what I'm going to do, we're going to take these two cards from the Venus position. Remember, Saturn is on the back end of this, and Saturn is the timekeeper, love stuck in time. But we're instantly just going to place these cards in their respected houses. That's all we have to do. So the 9th house in astrology, Sagittarius. The 7th house, Libra. Who is the ruler of Sagittarius? Zeus. Zeus is the only planet with the great red spot on it. That's the portal. Zeus rules the heavens. And then Aphrodite is the ruler of Libra. Aphrodite rules Libra, and Libra's got the Omega symbol on it. Why is that? Because, well, part of it is because after Libra, you go down into the underworld. Scorpio, this is the underworld. It's fascinating that Zeus traditionally sits in the underworld. Libra is the balancing of the scales as the sun goes down into the underworld to face the night. 7. And that's why this card right here, when you look at it into the tarot, is you're going here. You're looking at the sun as it goes down into the underworld is now having to decide as it transverses the sky, what is it going to take with it? So what is this referencing as a human being on your astrological chart? 7th house, partnerships. Libra, Venus, deciding what's important for you as you go down into Scorpio and into Sagittarius. See how fascinating this is. When you go deeper with this and get the numerical aspects from the spoken word using Chaldean numerology, we have a match to the word mushroom. We have Sagittarius, the sign of Sag, and the sign of Libra, both giving us the value of 38, which is exactly what the outcome of mushroom is. Not by accident. Even when I go to numerology here, keep your eye on the Chaldean all the way to the left. Spirit guide is 38. A lot of you say, I'm trusting my spirit guides. Well, now you know what they're tied to, the mighty mushroom. So if you want to have a trip on mushrooms, are you tapping into your spirit guide? Well, I'll leave that up to you. But Sagittarius and Libra, the 9 and the 7, the repeating of the 7. And this is the sun setting, going down as it transversed across the sky. And then we have the bridge into chemistry and how ridiculous this is. And this is how I know we live in a scripted reality, because I know the Royal Society of Chemistry is not sitting down with numerology before placing these icons to represent these elements. Because when you study strontium, and we go to that right there on the periodic table, you're going to see that strontium, the reason why that image is here, going down here to the uses and properties, is because the image is of a mushroom cloud. It alludes to the presence of strontium in a nuclear fallout. That's the reason why they put this image there. But of course, as fate would have it, we can synchronize it to the Jesus character. And is Jesus tied to the nuclear fallout? Absolutely. A nuclear event, perhaps. The clearing of the board. Well, it's right there. The average isotope for strontium is 87.62. It's actually going to be 88. That's going to tie to Ra in the phoenix. The word phoenix in Greek is 88. The phoenix event tied to the nuclear fallout after the nuclear event. That's the mushroom. It's a penis, right? So let's get into the magic mushrooms. Have you ever taken them? Maybe this will give you some insight on taking these. But here we go. Let's get into some real chemistry now, real science. Here is the drug, psilocin. We normally refer to things as psilocybin, right? But it's psilocin. Psilocybin has to be converted and broken down in the body to psilocin in order for you to feel the trip. Simple. Psilocin is the drug. Well, we're going to break this down. I'm going to show you how it's tied to Jesus Christ and how that book from John Allegro and the mushroom and the cross has a lot of merit. Because the molar mass of psilocin, I got it circled in red right there, is 204.273, which is a match to this isotope of thallium 204.974. This is what science will do. It will back off. This is the isotope. It will get rounded up, but science backs it off a little bit. And now we have absolute credibility here of John's book, The Mushroom and the Cross, and the Christ character, and the fertility cult, because psilocin matches the numerology of Jesus Christos, because it ties to thallium. And remember, thallium means green shoot. It means fertility. That gives John Allegro's book, The Mushroom Cloud, even more credibility with all these layers that can match up here. So, here is the decay chain. This is a big deal. This is probably the biggest deal in the entire presentation. Is that you have the decay chain of Neptunium. I have the arrow at the top. Neptunium 237. Neptunium has 93 protons. Is this why they say the sun is 93 million miles away? Because it's tied to the planet Neptune? Can't leave it out. Well, when you leave it out, it's going to decay. It's going to take 2,140,000 years to decay, just its half-life, to go all the way down, and it's going to land at thallium 205, where it will become stable, where it becomes the Jesus character. I'm telling you, it's all chemistry, which ties to Greek mythology and theology. So Neptunium becomes thallium, which becomes the Christ, and it means a green twig, and it means fertility. A new thing popping out of the ground. The god of fertility, the goddess, Thalos. So here it is, blown up, the isotope. Here it is. The 204 matches the molar mass of psilocin, which is the active ingredient to give you the mushroom trip. Now John Allegro's book just has a ton more credibility to it now. As well as if you watch Dr. Hillman and his Chemical Muse, that has a lot more merit to it. Now, with these layers. And even more fascinating, because it's all clues, and we just chase that, as we've done so many times here, what happens why would you add up these two numbers? It gives you another clue. What's 70 plus 48? It's 118. And that matches to the word Christos. It also matches to the word Tartarus. Tartarus in Greek numerology is 118. I say that Christos is the prison. Love is the trap. It's the prison. The greatest prison ever, but it's the prison. 118. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Is the Royal Society of Chemistry, is science producing these numbers because they have this information beforehand? Because they know that Jesus Christos is tied to Neptune, and Neptune is tied to thallium, and thallium is tied to Thalos? Do they have all this knowledge? And that's why they said, well, we got to make this 70.48 because it's going to add up to 118. No, this is, look how big of a deal this is. This is so crazy. But of course, as fate would have it, that's how all this stuff works. So I want to throw this at you. Now that we have all this information, we talked about this over on the Patreon. It's not the first time. And I have mentioned this before. Could Poseidon, could Neptune be the father? Is this the father that Jesus was alluding to? Well, it takes on a whole different role now, and it allows us to go deeper, Because again, here is the decay chain of Neptunium-237. It's got 93 protons. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the word virgin in Greek is 93, as is the word lukewarm. That's why I said lukewarm for the win. You got to go back to the state of innocence. This is the decay chain of Neptunium-237. It's going to land at a stable 205, which is Jesus Christos. This is why I'm saying this example in chemistry supports that the father of Jesus is Neptune. Why would that be? Well, because Neptune is the god of water. And the water breaks before the baby comes out of the mother's womb. The baby is surrounded by fluid, which is water-based. The blood is water-based. Our bodies are made up of primarily water. Poseidon got the earth. Zeus, his brother, got the heavens, and Hades, his other brother, got the underworld. Pluto's going to get you eventually. Hades, when you die and you turn to dust, you're going to go back to the land of Pluto. He'll get you. But as you're here breathing and living out, and breathing in H2O, which is hydrogen twice and oxygen, which is water. Oxygen is the primary aspect of our breathing. You now have the aspect of you being born a virgin. All of us are born virgins, and we become the property of the Lord. Well, the Lord goes by so many different things, and it's not just Neptune, because you got Zeus, the brother, and Hades, the underworld. But now, you see, Greek mythology has just as much merit as any theology out there. Poseidon running the waters. Not just the god of the seas, but the god of water. And could this be the devil's pitchfork? Absolutely it could. The mighty Poseidon. So we're going to go a little bit deeper with this. These are the things that I left out on the first rendition of this. So I'm going to use the square root of 3. I'm going to use the square root of 3, and it's right here on the Decoded website. Right here is the square root of 3. It's on one of the defaulted ciphers. This is absolutely free. I have more ciphers than anybody else on the internet today. This is for code breaking. I'll leave the link, decoded.co/decoding. If you're not using it, it's free. There's no memberships. More ciphers than anybody else. So we already have it here by default. When you take the Roman spelling of Neptune, Poseidon, 30. Just like Vesica piscis. The Vesica piscis is the fish. Jesus is the ichthys. This cross right here is going to fit right here all the way from top to bottom, the 265 measurement. This is the vagina, which is what you come out of right here. This is the physical Vesica piscis. This is the cosmic Vesica piscis, the lunar and solar cycles, eclipses. 30 is 41. I'm going to get into 41 in a second. The word Elohim is 41. Let us make man in our image. Elohim is 41 in Hebrew numerology. But this is another big takeaway. Vaticanus, 30. You know, they wear the mitre hats. They're huge. Why are we at maritime law, folks? If you're in the U.S., you're under maritime law. You're into the birth. You're into the banks. You're into the maritime law. Why? Because you're under the domain of Neptune. You're under the domain of Poseidon. That's why the real reason why we're at maritime law is because they're worshiping Poseidon, Neptune. That's why. Because Neptune runs the earth. And it just might be that Poseidon's the devil. People don't look at it this way. But anyway, why Vaticanus? And why the 41? Because Vaticanus comes from Vatican Hill. There it is right there, Vaticanus. which is inside or near the Vatican City. And you see that Vatican City and Vaticanus is 41 degrees north latitude. 41 is tied to 30 in the square root of 3. Using the square root of 3. This is one of the biggest ciphers you can use. Poseidon, Neptune, water birth, the water breaks. And when you add up the neutrons, protons, and electrons of Neptunium, you're going to get that magical 330. And when I went 75 digits into the square root of 3, the 1.732050, that cipher, that sequence, you get it adds up to 330. Why 75 digits? Because we're prisoners of love. Love is the big takeaway here. You see, love is 20. Well, we'll just go here and we can type in the word Venus, and you get Venus 20 in the square root of 3. Jesus is Venus. We're prisoners of love. That's why Jesus wants you to love everything. That's what always wins out in this world. Love. Love always beats out evil. It always, because the game has to keep going. Why do you think there's this big thing about the Vatican owning your birth certificate and being traded on the stock exchange or being traded for bonds or however that looks? Right there. Right there. It's all here, folks. You now have the eyes to see all this tied to the mushroom cross. Even this. And this is the introduction. Many of you probably don't know this exists, but I created on the Decoded website a Greek square root of 3 cipher. So you can take your Greek words, because I'm telling you right now, folks, this is the portal. We're going to create it for Hebrew, we're going to create it for other ones, but right now I got the modern Greek there, and you just get that by going to the ciphers, coming down to the Greek, and there it is, the modern Greek square root of 3 cipher. Start using it. It's free, man, no memberships here. But even the Greek spelling of Jesus using the square root of 3 is a 30. So is Jesus referencing the Father, and is the Father Neptune? Is this the Trinity? The Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost? It's the letter W. You know what the W is? Tungsten. You know what the tungsten's tied to? Our DNA. This is big, man. So let's get back to the mushroom and the cross and how it's tied to Neptune, Neptunium, and we go to astrology now, we go to Pisces. Because Pisces is the fish, and that's what the Vesica Piscis is. It's the fish, the ichthys. Jesus was a fisher of men. So you just take Neptunium, you put it in the sign of Pisces, the 12th sign. It's going to fit right there. And then across the aspect of the tarot, we have the hangman, which is kind of the cross of St. Peter. Of course, the Romans are going to put the T-junction there, but the original cross is an upright eye. Hands over the head, feet put together. That's the real cross, the Staros in Greek. And the hangman, card number 12, is a card of Pisces. Coming at this, we come out head first. Come out like this, through the womb. We become fish. And then you have the opposite house of Virgo. Now you have a complete aspect of the Christ, being a fisher of men and being born of a virgin. Virgo being sign number 6, Pisces being sign number 12. And what's 6 plus 12? 18. And the word Jesus in Chaldean numerology is 18. But you see, Virgo's ruled by Mercury, the messenger. Jesus was a messenger. So he has a mercurial energy, just like all of us have mercurial energy. It's the way you think. It's the way you communicate. We all have Neptune energy in our reality. And the card that represents Virgo is the Lovers. Don't get bamboozled by people that give tarot and tell you the Lover's card is Gemini. It's not. It's Virgo. Virgo is the last day of creation, day number 6. The Lover's card is card number 6. That's a direct match. The last day of creation tied to Adam and Eve, they're right there on the card. The Lover's card is the card assigned to the sign of Virgo. The Hangman, Pisces. This is reincarnation, ladies and gentlemen. And when you do the chemistry of this, Mercury, the average isotope is 200. Neptunium, 237. 200 and 237 gives you 437. And 437 is got the same numerical output, or the same numbers as the word God in Chaldean. There's the 374. 437, 374. These are very, very big layers of evidence here to support how all this works. Allegorically through the storyboards of the tarot, allegorically through the astrological charts, through the chemical aspects, and through the numerology aspects. Mythology meets theology. They both have an absolute amount of merit together. When we do the numerology of Virgo Pisces, you get the 42. This is a big deal, right? Because Jesus is number 42. I didn't make this up, ladies and gentlemen. There are 42 generations from Abraham to David to the Jesus character. He is number 42, and Virgo Pisces is 42, and this is the symbiotic relationship of the virgin and the fish, Jesus being a fisher of men, born of a virgin. This is such credible evidence that 42 is a big deal, and you'd see what it's tied to: reincarnation. Reincarnation means to do it again, to do it again, to do it again, to do it again. To do it again. All right, well, let's add up the protons. Mercury's got 80, Neptune's got 93. 80 plus 93, what does that give us a total of? 173. What's the 173 tied to? The Vesica Piscis. The square root of 3 is 1.73, which is 265 divided by 153, the measurements of the Vesica Piscis. 1.73. Tied to that live birth, coming through the vagina physically, coming through the portal cosmically. Not knowing that you're going to do this again. This little boy, this little girl, they have no idea. When we were at this stage of the game of our lives, you had no idea. I had no idea this information. This is the rebirth, recycle. This is the church using this. I did not choose December 25th. The Vatican chose it. But Jesus chose I'm a bright morning star, and that's why we go back to April 5th and the 42, and these are humdingers. So to finish this one off, just know that in the Vedic traditions, Brahma is Poseidon. Brahma is the creator god. And in the word God, it would represent the letter G. And the letter G, I feel, is the letter that represents generate. You know, you go back up here and you have the 42 generations. Generate. The G in God is generate. And that is Brahma in the Vedic. That is Poseidon, aka Neptune in the Roman. These are one and the same. And they represent the creation. Brahma being the creator god. It never ends, because this represents the Y chromosome, which determines the sex, which is where you get the Christ energy from. And love always wins. It will never not win. This will never not win, folks. Because guys will use this, women will chase this. Guys will chase the women, women will chase the guys. It is programmed within us. And that creates another offspring, and that is why you have the creation, the generation, the generate. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. The mushroom cross decoded. We went a little bit into different areas. But again, this is just how you code break. You follow the trail. And is the father of Jesus just Neptune? Brahma. The mighty Brahma. Well, chemistry comes through once again. Probably the biggest takeaway out of this entire presentation. And maybe you'll get inspired by doing some mushrooms tomorrow or this weekend or whenever you watch this presentation. And maybe you'll find God. Many people do. But this book from John Allegro has a ton of merit, and it has a lot of credibility, and it has just as much credibility as any writing that you would call divine, because John Marco Allegro's book, The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, is just as much divine as any of the Holy Scriptures, as any of the Dead Sea Scrolls. His book, this book is divinely written. That's my final answer. It's written by the divine. Using John Allegro, we channel information. That's what I'm doing right here. Whatever's using me, you can call it whatever you want, using me as the instrument, divinely guided. You're divinely guided. This is a divinely written book. My final answer. Okay, so there you go, ladies and gentlemen. The Mushroom Cross Decoded. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. If you saw something or you'd like to add something, leave a comment. I get inspired. I find different clues from people. Again, someone left me a comment on this one, which was all about this book I had no idea existed, and this is how we created this entire presentation. So again, big thank you to whoever you were. Well, that's all I got for today. My name is Logan for Decode Your Reality. Until next time, we will see you later.